Let's talk about food tech for a second. Exciting stuff. Now, two companies recently got approval from the FDA to sell cellular meat, specifically lab grown chicken or cellular cultivated chicken, in the US. But first, I want to talk to you about another food technology that is significantly less sexy: the microwave. The first microwave oven was introduced between 1964 and 1966, and it was a weird thing. A lot of people still think it's a weird thing. Microwaves were enormous, they were expensive. Some of them weighed up to 175 pounds, and some of them were 5.5 feet tall and carried a $5,000 price tag. Certainly, that's something that people did not think was going to catch on. We have a perfectly natural, long-standing, normal way to heat up food, people said. It's called an oven, or if you're going to be really crazy, a stove. They were considered luxuries for weirdos. What does that sound like? Does it sound a little bit like cultured meat? Now that the FDA has approved this, we're seeing a different kind of pushback from the industry and from the alarmist media that just wants to get clicks however it can. I think the reason sales of microwaves have gone down just slightly is that everybody has one. You can have one from 1987, it probably still works. Now that the animal agriculture industries have lost the regulatory battle, despite their scare tactics and fear-mongering, they're turning to other concerns that they have about lab-grown meat. Now, claiming that it's potentially unsafe, untested, that's nothing new. But now they're focusing a little bit more on the idea of the sustainability of this technology from a financial and investment standpoint. A recent article in Forbes magazine was wringing its hands over how much is this going to cost? Is it ever going to be affordable to the average American consumer? It's amazing how populist these companies get once there's a product potentially coming onto the market that isn't making them money. They went into some legitimate concerns or issues that pro-cellular meat advocates and companies are certainly well aware of, which is the difficulty and expense of bringing a new technology to scale. But they also interviewed a venture capitalist, a couple of them actually, seemingly independent commentators there to make unbiased observations about the prospects of this product to succeed in the market. Now, I got a little bit curious about one of these venture capitalists, and I started looking into what his firm invests in. Surprise, surprise. It's not very satisfying to play Nancy Drew when it literally takes 2 seconds to find the connection. Specifically, the companies that his venture firm invests in are occupying a space called regenerative meat. So-called regenerative agriculture is the hip new trend that has popped up in parallel to food technologies like Beyond Meat or the Impossible Burger or now cellular meat. And they play on basically the opposite tropes in our society. Cellular meat is all about the idea that we don't have to do things the way we've always done them, that we should open our minds to new possibilities. One is very sci-fi and one is very back to nature. The problem with the claims of the back to nature crew is that they're mostly literally bullshit. It's become a very trendy topic in conversations about food system transformation. One of its own proponents describes it this way: the concept is fluid, and because it's not associated with any formal definition, it's possible to discern among its practitioners and advocates many different perspectives as to what regenerative agriculture ought to be. Well, that's very convenient. Ultimately, for all the different ways people spin it, with lots and lots of fluffy, feel-good words and videos of bucolic pastures, the basic premise of regenerative agriculture is that we can actually save the planet by eating more cows. Specifically, cows that live on pasture. The science behind this has been thoroughly debunked. The reason this is a direct competitor to cellular meat is that both of these so-called food system trends are targeting the same market. And that, at the moment, is the affluent American consumer. The affluent consumer who feels kind of guilty about the animals, who feels pretty concerned about the climate, but just is really clinging to the idea that they either need to keep eating meat for some soul deep, ancient reason, or that they don't want to give up meat and they feel like they deserve to just have, a little bit of it. So there are two ways they can deal with this. They can either swear it off and switch to either plant-based alternatives of the traditional sort or cellular agriculture, or they can get behind this idea of restorative grazing. It seems on the face of it like the restorative ag people are going to have an easier time. After all, people often don't really look into the science behind claims animal agriculture makes. For instance, people arguing that gestation crates are actually more humane and make pigs happier. So why are people paying so much attention to the developments in the cellular meat market and to this so-called higher welfare restorative grazing? It's becoming clear that the sense you've probably gotten when you've seen eggs advertised as cage-free at the grocery store or burgers advertised as made with free-range beef at the trendy restaurants, that it really is a money-making ideal for people to be able to offer people what they want or what they think they really, really care about and need to have in their lives, which is consuming animal products, while also kind of shrugging off that icky factory farm stigma. And it's true that cellular meat is going to start out very expensive by any kind of traditional standard if we're comparing it to the meat that people currently buy. But while that's being painted as the kiss of death for cellular meat, see my comments on the microwave. I'm going to show you a graph that documents not only the incredible arc of technological change when it comes to mass adoption of new technologies, but specifically how quickly the microwave took hold of the American kitchen. It's important to note that microwaves became widespread when they became more affordable, and that's because they started to be used in specialized industry applications, like commercial kitchens. The bottom line here is that people will innovate as products hit the market. When something like the microwave comes onto the scene, it's not just a matter of the innovation of the company that made the microwave. It's a matter of the fact that as technology spread in our society, we can't predict or control how they're going to be used, where they're going to find a home. And it's understandable why someone would think it was weird on the face of it. But there are a lot of things right now that frankly sound pretty weird, and no one is counting out their relevance. No one is writing articles in Forbes magazine saying, artificial intelligence is just, it's not really relevant. You know, there's a lot of hype about it, but that's just not going to go anywhere. It's not something we should pay any attention to. Basically, this is an unstoppable technology. Whether or not the average American craves it or even feels open to trying it, the average American, the average human, doesn't know what they are going to want in 10 years or in a year. We certainly don't know as a society what's going to be normal in 50 years. As far as the cost, electric vehicles were seen as prohibitively expensive, still somewhat more expensive, although a majority of Americans actually support government intervention to promote its adoption. But more and more Americans are interested in having them. They're no longer seen as a weird, unnatural thing. In fact, Teslas were the highest selling car in California last year, and Ford can't even keep up with the demand for its transformer-looking eco-truck things. It's understandable that cellular meat has drawn really strong reactions on both sides. It's one of those things where no one had ever really thought that this would be possible. The really newsworthy part of this development isn't that people are interested in trying plant-based meat or that companies are overcoming the odds to be able to bring it to market. The part that pleasantly surprises me is that the FDA actually went along with this. What tends to happen is that the people with the most money and the most investment in the outcome of these decisions tend to prevail. So the fact that the FDA was willing to just say, all right, just shows how much public momentum is behind these things.